Welcome back to this yet another important topic from the perspective of prelims 2021. I'll be using the previous year questions in this video to explain the importance of wetlands. Now, I'm not going to take the conventional approach of trying to explain the significance of wetlands. We will just be sticking to the perspective of the UPSC prelims examination and trying to eliminate the options by using certain logics. You can find the PDF of this video on this Telegram channel, Hindu Highlights. Let us imagine that you know nothing about a wetland. So, wetland, as the name itself indicates, has something to do with water. But you also have to know how exactly is it different from the rest of the aquatic ecosystems that you witness. So, basically, wetland is something that has water, but at the same time, there are certain characteristics. It is a zone of transition. So it is a sort of a buffer zone between two ecosystems. Say, for example, in this case, one you have the land system or the terrestrial system. On the other hand, you have the deep water aquatic ecosystem. So the middle part, this is where you have a lot of productivity because it takes the best of both the worlds, and that is why there is a lot of productivity in this zone. These zones are called wetlands when they have water. They exhibit certain characteristics. The flora and fauna of that ecosystem exhibit certain characteristics. For example, we have already discussed in the previous video regarding mangroves. If you haven't watched the video, I'll be giving a link in the description box below. You can go there and watch it. It is a very important topic because of a recent discovery. Anyway, coming back. So what are the characteristics that you see in wetlands? One, you find a lot of hydrophytes. What does it mean? So the waterlogged conditions, or as you can see in this picture, the soil is uh, containing a lot of water. There is absolute saturation. So such kind of plants which adapt to such kind of situations are called hydrophytes. The second one, hydric soils. What do you mean understand by hydric soils? Hydric soils mean they don't have enough oxygen. So these are the two important points that you have to note. And a fine example for this is mangroves. So lack of oxygen and adaptability to waterlogged conditions. Now, what kind of respiration happens? Aerobic or anaerobic? Please post in the comment section when there is low oxygen. Moving on. In India, there is something called landscape approach for conservation of these wetlands. Don't confuse yourself. They are focused on sustainable development in simplest words. That is to say, on one hand, you have to conserve them, and on the other hand, economic activities should not stop. The approach which facilitates that is landscape approach. Whenever you come across this term, understand that it is a holistic approach. Now, why are we focusing on a landscape approach? Why not completely stop the usage of wetlands? That is practically not possible because they cover only 6% of the Earth's land, but 40% of all the plant and animal species live or breed in wetlands. So the productivity of this area is very, very high, and human beings depend on them. Let us try to answer this question from 2012 UPSC. So this question asks, in which of the following areas local people are not allowed to collect and use the biomass? Now, we have just discussed that we are following a landscape approach in conserving wetlands. Doesn't that mean we want to allow people? So you can directly eliminate this option. I'm giving this as an example just to let you know how to think when you don't know anything about the topic. You just have to use your common sense sometimes. You can just eliminate this topic right away if you understand that we are following a landscape approach. Moving on. The second detail that you might want to remember is the obvious Ramsar Convention. So we all know that it is regarding wetlands. Everybody remembers that, but one often makes a silly mistake by ignoring the fact that it is the only convention which talks about specific ecosystems. Unless and until we remember this point, it is quite possible that we might miss it and mark a wrong option. Now, a couple of trivial information. One, UK has the highest number of sites of Ramsar Convention in the world, and if you talk about the greatest area of listed wetlands, it is Bolivia. Now, there are certain principles that are followed by the Ramsar Convention. One is the wise use. Basically, it's about sustainable development with conservation. That is the principle of wise use. This has also been a mains question in 2018, so please remember. The second one is to maintain a Ramsar list for the purpose of conservation. And the third one, it's the vision of a shared wetland system whenever you find transnational wetlands or wetlands that are shared between two countries. So these are the three objectives of this convention. We tend to overlook this keywords. Just remember shared wetlands, Ramsar list, wise use. Now, what are the criteria? You don't have to by heart it. Just look at these criteria by downloading them. They are very obvious points because they are trying to conserve the species there. Now, why only water birds? Why only fish? You can ask. The reason why water birds are so important is because in our basics of environment, we'll be studying about the methodologies that flora and fauna follow for adapting to external environment. Now, in that, migration is one such pattern that birds use to move away from cold places in harsh climates. So these birds travel from place to place across the seasons and find out suitable habitats. Now in India, we have a lot of wetlands which are very suitable for survival of these water birds. So they become very crucial part of our ecosystem, and we know that in order to maintain the integrity of our ecosystem, it is important to maintain water birds as well. So we'll be learning about a few organizations which deal with this aspect as well in the coming slides. Now another trivial information. Sundarbans, they are the largest protected wetlands in the country and also in Asia. So if you take a look at this wetland, 60% of that wetland or Sundarbans is in Bangladesh, and it was given a Ramsar Convention status way back in 92 itself. But it is only in 2019 that India, the rest 40% of India's Sundarban site also got this Ramsar recognition. They met 4 out of 9 established criteria. We have discussed 6 here, which are considered to be important. Moving on to the next topic, Montreals Record, another important topic. If this is the list of Ramsar sites, within them you have this Montreals Record, which is of extreme importance, which is a matter of urgency. You have to remember that this register is not binding on the parties, not binding. They are just voluntary in nature because they act as a signal to countries to signify that these particular water bodies or wetlands are undergoing a significant change in the ecological character. They're getting damaged. So you have to remember and take necessary steps when the wetland enters into this Montreals Record. If you do that, we will not only be achieving the sustainable development goals, but also uh, addressing the Paris climate change goals will also become very important for us in the longer run. So wetlands have this capacity of acting as carbon sinks, and therefore they are very important. So in India, right now we have two. One is the Loktak Lake, and the other one is Keola Dev National Park. Both of these are under the Montreals Record for different reasons. You can just download and read about the points here. So also remember the important flora and fauna and the important projects which are responsible for this damage. Previous UPSC question. So if a wetland of international importance is brought under the Montreals Record, what does it imply? We have discussed all the details pertaining to this. Now let us try to solve this question. Option A looks very obvious, but look at the other options. We spoke nothing about the status of World Heritage when we are discussing about the Montreals Record. And the survival of the wetland depends on the cultural practices and traditions of certain communities living in the vicinity, and therefore the cultural diversity. We didn't speak anything about the cultural practices because, of course, it is implied that cultural practices are also important for wetlands, but that is not the focus of this Montreals Record. It is a purely technical term which indicates that these wetlands are in danger. The country in which the wetland is located should enact a law. I've just discussed that it is voluntary in nature and nothing of that sort is valid here. So you can eliminate all these options and directly mark point A or option A as the answer. UPSC has been asking questions from the past couple of years as well. So in this context, the Wetlands Conservation Management Rules of 2017 also becomes very important. Now, certain facts. As per which law we are enacting this rules? It is the Environment Protection Act of 1986. This can be a question. What is the important feature here? You are actually trying to delegate the responsibility to the states, and thereby decentralization is happening. That is, center is just acting as an advisory body. It is just monitoring the rules implementation and acting as an advisory body. For this purpose, there is something called the National Wetland Committee, which replaced the Central Wetland Regulatory Authority. So just understand this concept that states will now implement and center will just advise. So how is this an effective measure is what we have to see. Now, one more question. Is environment a state subject or a central subject or a concurrent subject as per Schedule 7? Please comment in the comment box below. Also give an explanation for this. Two important international bodies in this context, Wetland International and BirdLife International, both these organizations were asked in the exam. Both these bodies are actually NGOs. Please remember this point. They are voluntary organizations that receive support from various international agencies as well. So Wetlands International, the point that you have to remember is it is not formed after the Ramsar Convention or during the Ramsar Convention. It formed way before that, in 1937 itself, with headquarters in Netherlands. So this is the fact you have to remember. And the other one, BirdLife International, the reason is birds constitute a very vulnerable group, and this organization has been the largest nature conservation partner for a lot of international organizations like IUCN. So there is something called the Red List, which is released by IUCN. BirdLife International comes up with that. It identifies something called important bird and biodiversity areas, and in India, we have an NGO called the Bombay Natural History Society (BNHS), which is the nodal agency for BirdLife International. It helps in identifying those birds and monitoring them. Again, this is also an NGO. It is not under any UN body or international intergovernmental body. 2014 UPSC question on this topic. First point, it is an autonomous organization under some ministry, Ministry of Environment and Forest. So this is obviously false. It strives to conserve nature through action-based research. Yes. It organizes and conducts nature trials and camps for the general public. Of course, you might wonder that you have not studied about this, but you just have to know that if you can eliminate the first option, you can eliminate two options. Now, the third statement, it is neither an extreme statement nor it is completely impossible. It seems a very probable statement. So you can take that risk of feeling that it is a right statement unless and until there is something technically wrong about it. Just go with your gut feeling. Most of the times, these sort of general statements are not twisted. So 2 and 3 can be the answer, even if you have not studied about this organization in depth. So we are concluding the conceptual part here, and in the subsequent videos we will be dealing with trivial information and the ways to remember these wetlands and the important geographical features mapping associated with the wetlands. So before concluding, we'll be talking about certain important facts. A few years ago, Uttar Pradesh did not have any Ramsar wetland sites, but right now it has the highest number of Ramsar wetland sites in our country. Sundarban, like we have already discussed, is the largest Ramsar site. The smallest one is in Himachal Pradesh and it is called Renuka. And what are the first sites to be declared as Ramsar sites? In 1981, one, you have the Kerala Devghana National Park in Rajasthan and the Chilka Lake in Orissa. So these are the facts that you have to know. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. You can download the PDF of this video from the Telegram channel that I've just mentioned, t.me/Hindu highlights. If you like the video and if you think this is a good revision, Just like, share, and subscribe. That's it for now. Thank you.